welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up with Dr. Jacob Liberman, and he's here today to talk to us about his new book, Luminous Life. Now, Dr. Jacob Liberman is a pioneer in the fields of light, vision, and consciousness, and he's the author of numerous books. Originally, he trained as an optometrist and vision scientist, and his life changed in 1976 after a miraculous healing. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Jacob Liberman.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's always a pleasure to have this opportunity to share my life's work and what really is my passion, and so I'm grateful for this time together with you today.
Oh, I am so delighted that we're spending this time together. In fact, as soon as I saw your book, the light was illuminating from it, and I had to have you on the show.
Great.
Well, and for our listeners, gosh, you've been around a long time. You've got beautiful TED Talks are all over the internet. But maybe for our listeners that are new to your work, why don't you share just how you got started on this path?
Well, first of all, professionally, my background is that I was an optometrist and also a vision scientist. And I started that aspect of my life in the early 1970s. I spent years investigating vision, not in terms of eyesight, but in terms of how vision could be trained to optimize performance, because everything we do is guided by our eyes. I spent years working with natural vision improvement to attempt to develop ways to prevent vision deterioration, which is the biggest health epidemic in the world, and also to see if it's possible to diminish our dependency on glasses. And I did that because, one, I saw that everyone's eyes were deteriorating in the early 70s when I first got into this, and that's exactly what had happened to me. And so at the time that I entered practice in 1973, I was wearing my 7th pair of glasses and could only see the big E on the eye chart when I took my glasses off. So this was a bit of a personal experimentation to see if I could uncover something that was new and that could be beneficial for humanity. In the process of my investigations and journey on myself, I had a miraculous healing of my eyesight that occurred instantaneously in 1976. It was catalyzed while I was in the midst of meditating one day, and literally my eyesight improved by 300%, even though there was no change to the prescription in my glasses. In other words, my ability to see improved 300%, but my eyes didn't change at all. And the reality of that experience led me to recognize that the eyes are only a small aspect of the seeing mechanism, and that there is something else that is navigating our life, that is seeing the world both externally and internally. I should mention that occurred 42 years ago in 1976. I have never had a pair of glasses on my face since that day. I'm 70 years old now, and I see well at distance, and I see very well up close, and it continues to amaze all my eye doctors, because I used to be nearsighted with a lot of astigmatism. Now I'm farsighted with even more astigmatism, which should make my near vision a problem, but it doesn't, because I've learned to trust a different seeing mechanism than the seeing mechanism that we have physically, which is our eyes. And so the process of working with many thousands of individuals, as well as having these personal kinds of changes, taught me a great deal about what it means to see, what is the seeing mechanism within our humanity, and also taught me things about learning, how it is that we learn, and in the process of learning those things, I realized, and I work with tens of thousands of kids that have been diagnosed with learning problems. In that process, I realized that pretty much everything we're taught about thinking ahead and working hard and so on actually impedes the process of learning rather than facilitating it. So a lot of these epiphanies that I had along the way, from the fact that the body is designed to function without effort, and so is our life, that we're designed to learn without effort and see without effort, all of that led me to certain realizations about our relationship with what we call light, what light is, and the culmination of that is this current book. This is my fourth book. The first book was titled Light, Medicine of the Future. That was released in 1991 and introduced the whole concept of light as the most powerful biological impact that we have from the environment, and how light therapy was going to be used in the future. That book, Light, Medicine of the Future, has come to pass, and now light is the medicine that we are using in so many, many different applications. I then wrote a book called Take Off Your Glasses and See, which was based on the miraculous healing of my eyesight and what I learned about seeing and learning. And then I shared a book called Wisdom from an Empty Mind, which was a book that contained little short one-page essays and quotes that came through live while I was doing public talks, because none of my talks are prepared. Luminous Life is an integration of light, vision, and consciousness. It shares an entirely new and unique paradigm about life and how things actually work, how we are literally guided by this most subtle fundamental energy in the universe called light, how all of our cells, both in our eyes and all of the cells of our body, literally are designed to detect and respond to light, and how they're doing that throughout the day and night, so that we are always in a harmonious relationship with life. And I share this because we have been conditioned to believe that we have to make things happen. And so we are continually swimming upstream in relation to the body's actual design. We were led to believe that we have to think ahead and make choices all the time. But lo and behold, I discovered in the process that the answers actually come to us, the guidance actually comes to us free of charge. And that what we often think is us making choices, we've come to discover that those decisions have been made way in advance of the time that we are even aware that they've been that we're making them. So what I'm sharing is, I'm trying, in the process of writing this book, I realize that all of us have different beliefs, but beliefs are not truth. Beliefs are just opinions, theories, concepts. And so this book is attempting to share truths that are beyond our beliefs, very underlying things that are consistent rather than changing. So that's a rather long answer, but I hope it lays a foundation for how I got to where I am at this time of my life.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to go through that. And, one of the things I've, been a fan of your community, and I loved your TED Talk, where you described initially how you can tell there was that separation that you were being watched. And it really struck me as, the first time I was able to determine that there was that separation as well. It's kind of our personal aha moment as we go along our journey.
And those ahas are the critical places. You see, we have been led to believe that if you want to make change, you have to exercise. You have to do things over and over and over and over again. In actuality, the body is designed to function effortlessly, just like Mother Nature. So if it takes effort to create change, it will take effort to maintain it. And if it takes effort to maintain it, it will not be maintained for very long, because that again is going in opposition to the actual design of our physical body and of our life. What I have found creates change are just what you just said. The epiphanies, the revelations of life. The things that come all of a sudden out of nowhere, free of charge, that literally transform our awareness, and then that awareness becomes curative, and our brain literally begins to rewire itself instantaneously.
And that's really where we want to be, is where we're having these changes. And that's why I so love and appreciate your work, because it's leading not just the reader, but the people who listen and attend your book signings and workshops and all those good things. It allows them to, realize that they can have these aha moments. It's part of what we should expect.
Well, we were born with them. When an infant is born, the infant does not know it was born, does not know it is an infant, doesn't know whether it is male or female, black or white, Christian, Muslim, or Jew. It doesn't even know that it is separate from its mother and father. Because, as Sigmund Freud said, the infant is born and lives in an ocean of bliss, oceanic bliss, he described it, because it's an undifferentiated state. It doesn't feel separate. But the first time that the infant has an experience like something frightens it, and that infant is told that there's nothing to be frightened of when it's frightened, it realizes that its reality, doesn't realize this consciously at that point, but there's a realization that its reality is actually different than the way society does things. When a child has to evacuate its bowels, it just does it. But when the parents say, oh no, you have to hold that until you get to the bathroom, the child begins to monitor everything that is natural and compensate in some way to make it normal. And what occurs is that space between what's natural and what's normal, that compensation, that self-monitoring, is what we call thinking. It's the worrying that we do in hopes that we will be accepted in the world. So, what I'm sharing, to confirm what you just said, we are born in that state. And So this is not a process of doing something to get there. It's a process of becoming aware of truth versus our conditioning. And, one of the reasons that it is so difficult for us to get free of these patterns is that we were led to believe from early on, when I was a kid in school, they said to us, the reason humans are more evolved than animals is because we can think. And so there was a great deal of emphasis placed on the thinking process and logic, and gave us the impression that everything we do, we have to think about it and then make a decision and do something. What's fascinating is that consciousness occurs in all living things. When the forest is burning, the trees are screaming. When a drop of water, rainwater, falls on the leaves of a plant, the plant has no response. But the moment a caterpillar is walking on the leaves of a plant and is about to take a bite of the leaf, that plant is in a state of stress that is measurable. All living things have consciousness. They all worry at different times in their own way. And what's important is that since we have been conditioned to believe that we are what we call our mind, we say, oh, this is my point of view. My mind, I can change my mind. I don't mind it. We use all these expressions, but there's something very, very profound that most of us never recognize, which I speak about in the book over and over again. The reason all of us are aware when the mind is thinking, when the mind is worrying or concerned about something, is because our true self is actually noticing that. Our essential self is noticing that and noticing everything that's going on all the time. So in actuality, the chatter that we hear inside is all generated through neural activity in the brain. Our essential self, what we call consciousness or awareness, is that field of eyes that notices silently, with no point of view, what's happening in the mind and everywhere else. And so the shift that creates this freedom, the truth that literally sets us free, as Jesus spoke about it, is when we no longer are looking at life through our conditioning, which says this is good and this is bad, and we begin seeing life through a place of no point of view, a place that is choiceless, which is in fact our true nature. And when that happens, all of life dramatically changes, and it can change absolutely instantaneously, as it did for me with my vision years ago.
I think that's just such a profound story about your vision, and just gives such a great example of what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much that we don't understand, but we need to start speaking about it, because all these things I'm speaking about, they make sense. And things that make sense, there's something in us that knows that they're right, even if we don't understand them.
That's so true. That's so true. Now, you talk about how we're in this age of light. What does that mean?
Well, let's see if we can present a little background here about what light is. First of all, one of the greatest minds, geniuses of our time, Albert Einstein, said he spent his entire life trying to understand what light was. And at the end of his life, he realized he didn't know any more than he knew at the beginning. Why is that? If you're looking at light from a religious perspective, you'll go to the Bible, and in the beginning, it says, "Let there be light," and it speaks of a source of creation, and it refers to the source of creation as God. And it says God, this God, is omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and omnipresent, everywhere at the same time. And then it goes on to say that this God, this creative force, is light. If you then are looking at things spiritually, and you look at text about spirituality and consciousness, you'll notice that they always speak of consciousness as light. If you then go to science and you speak to a physicist or a number of physicists, and you say to them, we live in this world where we see all these solid objects like trees and houses and computers. But what's behind all that? What is that actually? And they'll say to you, actually, we're all swimming in a quantum soup. And so I say, what are you talking about? What is that? And they say, in essence, everything that you think is solid is actually transformed energy. It's just vibration and energy. And if you can magnify something solid and continually magnify it, you discover that it's made of molecules and atoms and parts of atoms. And so you say to the physicist, well, at the most foundational level, what is this energy? And they say, oh, that's the energy of light. And so when you inquire what light is, you begin to realize that, first of all, no one can see light because light is not a thing. Light is totally invisible. So light is formless. It is merely a potential for everything that exists. That's why the very renowned theoretical physicist David Bohm said, all matter is frozen light. Everything that is solid, plants, animals, objects, and our bodies, this earth and everything else, is actually light energy that has been transmuted into form through some interaction with consciousness. But very few people have any understanding of what that is. So in science, they call that the hard problem. So when we speak of light, whether you speak of light and think of it as a physical thing from the sun or a spiritual light, it's all the exact same invisible potential for everything that exists. So having said that, our bodies and everything else is just solidified light. When you look at the way our bodies communicate, the way they communicate, and they do it at the speed of light, is by sending signals of light back and forth between our cells. When I went to school, I was led to believe that the part of our body that had the ability to see was our eyes, and that our eyes had photosensitive cells that were sensitive to light, and that's how we created vision. I discovered early on that only about a quarter of the light that entered the eye had anything to do with eyesight and vision. 3/4 of it went to the parts of the brain that control all of our life-sustaining functions. And the reason that light travels to those parts of the brain that control the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, and every other system is because for us to stay healthy, our internal physiology must be synchronized with Mother Nature. As an example, that's why we wake up when the light comes up and we go to sleep when it gets dark. That's why our body does certain things by day and totally different things by night. Every function of the body is light dependent. And what we know today is that every cell of the body has the ability to detect, to see light, to detect and respond to light. So all of our cells, through a process called photobiomodulation, are taking in light all the time and modulating their physiology and behavior so that the inside of our body is always synchronized or at one with Mother Nature. Another way of saying that is that the primary purpose of light is to upgrade the software of our humanity so that we are one with life, one with the cosmos. And when that occurs, that's when we have instances of profound awareness. That's what people call enlightenment. That's what athletes refer to as the zone. And that is also when we experience optimal state of wellness and our maximum potential as human beings.
Wow. That is so beautiful, and I love how I know you shared, just from a physical sense, that you went through a period where it was, I think, 9 weeks where you basically you let light feed you, and I'd love for you to share about that.
Yeah, in 1994, I was traveling in Australia, and I went to Adelaide, Australia, where someone was hosting me for an event. And without spending too much time, the person picked me up from the airport, asked me if I was hungry, would like to grab a little lunch. I said, sure. We went to a restaurant. The person serving us asked what we wanted. I asked for some sparkling water and a salad. And the waitress asked the other gentleman what he would be having, and he had ordered some water and said, I'm not eating. And I said, I thought you were hungry. And he said, no, I don't eat. And I said, are you fasting? And he says, no, I just don't eat. I said, I don't understand. And he says, I haven't eaten in a year. I said, that's impossible. He says, no, it's not. So I got to his house, sort of amazed, not knowing what to believe. I met 2 or 3 other people that lived in the house, and lo and behold, none of them ate. I went to, I bought some food, so I went to put it in the refrigerator, and I realized that the refrigerator was empty. I then, that was Friday morning, I did a presentation that evening, and 18 of the people there told me that they lived without eating. And they, among others, attended the workshop. So I learned some very interesting things about these people because I was with them for 3 days and they never ate anything. I then went to Perth, Australia, where I met with a group of friends and we rented a house for a couple of months. I mentioned it to them. They were so intrigued and asked me to find out about it. So I called this person who hosted me, and he faxed me over a document that described this 21-day process where you literally stopped eating. And although I was a bit concerned about that because it said that the first 7 days you didn't eat or drink. And of course all my medical training said that you don't drink for 7 days, you die. But I started doing an experiment with this. And lo and behold, I didn't eat or drink for 7 days. I stopped eating. I ended up not eating for 9 weeks. A friend of mine who was there ended up not eating for almost a year. Now, of course your listeners are saying, this guy must be crazy. It doesn't make any difference. You don't need to believe me or disbelieve me, and I love to eat, and I eat all the time now, and I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. It was just an experiment I did because something intrigued me about this and I needed to know what truth was in this particular case. Now that's been a long, long time ago, and in this book I wrote a chapter called Living on Light. I don't even speak about my personal story in the book, but I do speak about a very famous Indian yogi named Prahlad Jani, who has not eaten for 60 or 70 years, and he is a medically documented case. He's been evaluated by the highest levels of medicine in India on multiple occasions for 10 and 15 days, being videotaped around the clock, blood tests taken every single day, evaluations every single day, continually being monitored by cameras and other people, and this person was in better health than most of us that eat. What's fascinating is that when I experienced this in 1994, it was considered crazy, and as I said, I wasn't trying to tell anyone about it. I just was, inspired to see what the truth of this was. But now, we have a great deal of evidence about how this may actually be possible. And one of the things that we know is that the water in our cells, and most of our body is water, is not like the water in our tap. It's called fourth phase water. And this fourth phase of water literally holds on to the light that impinges our body and acts like a battery that can literally provide energy for us without the consumption of food. The other thing is, we've all been led to believe that all of our energy that we get, the energy that our cells produce, is because of the food that we eat and metabolize. But now there's new evidence that basically has discovered that only 1/3 of the energy that our cells produce is related to the food that we metabolize. 2/3 is directly related to the ingestion of light. So now we're beginning to understand that it is possible to live without eating. And there is a lot of this information came from a documentary that was done by a man named Peter Straubinger, who I met in Vienna. And Peter did this documentary, which I think is called "And There Was Light." It's mentioned in my book, and people should really Google this and see this movie that he created, where he has all the information about Prahlad Johnny and all these other people, and he recently has created it with English subtitles. It's an absolutely fascinating documentary on this, and it's very, very full of scientific facts and scientific documentation and scientists and physicians speaking about what they've discovered. So it's very credible and it's very valuable. And again, this is not about whether we should eat or not. This is just, the only reason I share this is to share about the power of light, and that all of our bodies, minds, and spirits are light dependent. And when we're able to get more light into the body, because we're spending time outdoors, which we're designed to do, and because we're able to take in the full spectrum of light, which can be impeded if we have a lot of emotional trauma and so on in our lives. So as we become more receptive to light and more light gets into our bodies, we have significantly enhanced health and wellness. I'll give you an example. In the industry that produces eggs, chicken eggs, essentially they have chickens in cages, in factory farms. These chickens never see the light of day, and they're under artificial lights 24 hours a day to make them think that it's daytime, because that's when they lay their eggs, and for them to continually be laying eggs. When you examine those eggs, you realize that those eggs are filled with cholesterol. If you get free-range eggs from chickens that are not caged and living outdoors under natural daylight, you get 40% less cholesterol. So that's a perfect example of how light is related to cholesterol. We know that just being outside in the sun significantly reduces blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, stress, enhances your mood, enhances your immune system, your immunity, the way your blood flows. So all of these things are modulated by light. And it's very important not only to make sure we're getting plenty of daylight for our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development, but this is cueing our body and keeping us aligned with Mother Nature, which is so key to our health. You know, if someone takes a trip from Los Angeles to London, they're going to suffer something called jet lag, because their body's clock is timed to Los Angeles, but now they're in London. So they find themselves waking up at odd times of the day, going to sleep at odd times of the day, feeling like they have to evacuate their bowels at totally abnormal times, feeling like they are hungry when they normally wouldn't eat, and they feel out of sorts. And if it's a big enough time difference, they may even feel like they're coming down with something, because their system is so discombobulated. Now, over time, that balances itself out. However, what I've come to realize is that most of the chronic illness that we have is related to the fact that most people are chronically jet lagged even though they've never gotten on a plane and taken a trip. And the reason that is that rather than living life naturally, according to the natural day and night cycle, they're living what they call a normal life, which is looking at their iPhones at 12 o'clock at night or doing things in such a way that's built on all of our ideas about life, but most of the time is so different from the naturalness of life itself. So, Luminous life is really how to regain the innate wisdom of your life, how to live in a way where you feel content, where you have a better opportunity to be healthy and content most of the time, and hopefully avoid many of the acute and chronic illnesses that we see so many people around us dealing with.
And it really allows us to broaden our perspective of what's possible and really question, I just love hearing the stories of these different people that have gone through life not eating, not for the purpose of not eating, but it just shows the possibilities.
Yeah, and those possibilities are really important because as we become aware of those possibilities, it opens a door for us, and that is really, really unbelievably important.
It allows us to move beyond. My goodness, Dr. Jacob, I can listen to you talk for hours.
Thank you.
You're one of the people that I admire, and that's why I was so delighted to not only spend this time with you, but talk about your book and just light in general. And I love how you've been able to break it down for us so it makes sense. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn about all these great events you have?
The first place is my website, which is jacobleberman.org. That's O-R-G. And Liberman is spelled L-I-B as in boy, E-R-M-A-N. And on our events page, all of the places that I will be speaking at and doing book signings for this second phase of my book tour are all listed there. So that's number one. If people are interested in my newest book, Luminous Life, or any of the other books, they're on the site, and when you merely click on them, it will take you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you normally would order your books, so you can order them directly. The site is an informational site. It's not primarily a marketing site. I really don't have much of an interest of selling things to people other than offering things that I think could be very profound and life-changing. And so the site is, it's a beautiful site to look at. It's aesthetically very pleasing. I designed it that way. So that is a very good way for people to get information. They can also go to my Facebook page, and most everything will be listed there as well. And if they want to reach out to us, because most of what I do when I'm not on the road speaking is I mentor a small number of individuals, no more than 6 at any given time, 4 to 6. And I work with people for a minimum of 3 months. And I utilize everything that I've learned. I've created this color therapy kit, which is part of the mentorship program that people use at home under my right direction to help them to get to desensitize from a lot of the emotional triggers that catalyze stress in our lives. And so through the process of having one-on-one phone or Skype sessions for an hour or so with clients, we get a chance to speak about some of these most important questions in life. And over time, people's lives change. And they change very, very dramatically. So when I'm not speaking, I am typically mentoring individuals, and people can get information about that if they go to the site.
Well, there's also a place to sign up for your newsletter at the very bottom of your website. Isn't that? I highly suggest to that as well, so they can stay on top of all the events and different things that come about with the work that you do, because your work is so profound, Dr. Jacob.
I really appreciate. Thank you. I should mention our newsletters only come out 4 times a year. They're short. They're just offering some informational things. Again, they're not primarily marketing newsletters, and our contacts are not shared with anyone, so we do not inundate people's inboxes with all kinds of marketing things and so on. That isn't really what I'm interested in. I want to share knowledge rather than just stuff.
Oh, well, and you can tell. I mean, the information that you have on your website, your messaging comes across that you really are caring about sharing knowledge with people to move them to whatever their next level is. And that's so important, my goodness. Well, Dr. Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today and sharing your wisdom and insights with us.
It has been a great pleasure, and I appreciate you inviting me, because conversation, communication, interaction, where good questions catalyze the emergence of good responses, which can be beneficial. I think that's a very, very critical part of our life, is to share our inner terrain. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity today, and I'm grateful to all of your listeners as well.
Well, thank you. Your book is listed in our book club, among your other books as well, and so we're going to be watching all the great work you're doing and following all that. So thank you so much, Dr. Liberman.
Thank you so much. You have a grateful day.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, Dr. Jacob. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.